In this short tutorial, Iddrisu breaks down the essentials, from creating tables to inserting and deleting data, all the way to dropping tables. Whether you're a beginner or just brushing up, this is knowledge every future developer needs. Let's get started.
Hello, good day everyone. I hope we are fine. Iddrisu is here again to explain to you how to create an SQL table, how to insert data into an SQL table, how to set the primary key to auto increment, and also how to drop a row from a table and how to drop the entire table in SQL. For us not to waste much time, let's dive into our XAMPP to understand how we are going to create this table, after which then we'll move ahead to implement this queries and then all that. Even after this video, I'll make sure I come out with common queries that we have been running on the SQL data, so that we get to understand how it goes. So let's move ahead to see. Let's say we want to create a table, and when you look at my extreme left, you will see my databases. I have databases there. I have the topmost is new, where I can create a new database. But because we don't want to create a new database, but we are emphasizing on how to create a table, I want us to go ahead to check an existing database and then move inside that existing database to create our table. You know, we have below the new, we have impact Nexus main, we have impact Nexus. So what I want us to do is that let's move to laptop store. It is a database in my extreme left, so let me click on left laptop store. So now we are in laptop store. So I want us to create a table under laptop store. So let's move ahead to see, create, click new, then we wait for it to execute. Everything that we do, we wait for it to execute. So I click on SQL. So if I click on SQL, it says what? Run SQL query or queries on database laptop store. So our database name is laptop store, but we don't have the table that we want to create yet. So once we are doing it together, I want to create a table and call it friend, because I am doing it with my best friend. Let's go on. So let's say SQL create SQL. I want you to create table. Cancel. I want you to create table. I want you to create table, and then our table name should be called friend. Then we bring bracket, we open a bracket, then we come down. That is where we now write the details of the table. But first of all, what we are going to do is that we'll move ahead to write the columns of the table, after which we then insert data. So when we are inserting the data, that is where we will now be inserting the rows inside the table. But for now, we are going to create a table, and that table name is going to be called friend. And I said, because I'm doing it with you, I want to save it as friend. So now let's move ahead. Let's set our ID. So let's say ID is what is going to be our primary key, and then the primary key is what uniquely that we are going to use uniquely in identifying our table. I hope you've understood that. So we say our ID, we said it is int. So the int here identifies the data type, and we said it is going to be numbers. So for that matter, we'll make it int. The ID is going to be numbers. You know, the ID is where you number 1, 2, 3 up to the last part of the database you are creating. So now we said it is going to be int because we are using int data type. Let's move ahead, and we also says it is going to be a primary key because we want to uniquely identify it, and for that matter we will specify it as a primary key. Primary, we say primary, and then we add key, primary key. And I also said I want us to make it auto increment so that later or in the future when we are inserting tables, we will not rows, we will not be adding 1 2 3 to the rows. We will quickly go to insert the data instead of writing something that we can automate. So this one, adding the automation feature help us a lot because we will not be writing manual unnecessary numbers inside the database that may even lead to redundancy. You get that? So let's ignore, and then we set it into auto increment. So let's say auto increment first, then we bring our comma. Have you seen that? So we added our comma. So we are done with the ID. Let's move ahead to say we want to add what we want to add the first name, we add second name, and email. That's the number of attributes I want us to add into the ID. So let's move ahead to say first name. Let's add our first name. Let's put our first name first. Bring first name. So now that we bring our first name, then let's add the kind of data type it is. Remember, you always remember to bring the data type, else the system won't understand the kind of variable you're creating, the type of it, the type of data you want to insert into your table. Have you seen that? So now I want us to, this one should be a varchar. You get that? Because even though it is going to be something that the person, your user is going to input, but you can't determine the length of it. So let's put a varchar and then give a reasonable number of characters that the person is likely to enter. You get that? So let's say varchar. Let's say varchar. Then after saying varchar, then we specify the number. So let's say 50. So with 50, there is no way, there is no name that will exceed 50. I think every rational human being name doesn't have characters that are more than 50. So let's move ahead to add comma, and then we move ahead to say second name, or let's make it last name in order to make things easy for ourselves. Last name, and then we say it is also varchar. Then we bring the number, we specify the number, then we close, and then we bring comma. Have you seen that? We're done with that one too. Let's move ahead to enter the email. So email, then we say that one too should be a varchar. Then we say it is what, but this one, emails are always longer than names. So we can say this one is double of the name, and then we enter. And now we've closed that one too. But remember, we have a broader bracket open, so we have to close that one too. So when we close that one, we see that, and what is now left is that we need to bring a semicolon. That is what ends the statement, the block of code that we want to execute. You see? So when we're done with this, then we move ahead to create our table. Let me shift this so that we see the go button. So here is the go button, and when we click on it, our table will be created on our system. Let's click on it and see. Perfect. My SQL returned an empty result set, 0 rows. Query look, so the query takes this one to execute, and then we say so that our table has been created. Because when you look at my extreme left, under laptop store, you see the tables under laptop store. We have new, we have friend, we have others. What we have created is new, and that is it. So what I want us to do is that when we click on friend, we see the structure of our table. Perfect. Have you seen that? We have ID, we have first name, we have last name, we have email. So these are what we have just inserted. The rows, the attributes we have entered, the table attributes. That is that. We could have go ahead to just create a table without attributes, but it's wise enough to just create your table with attributes, and you're good to insert your rows. So let's move ahead to create to insert rows inside our table. I want us to move ahead and then insert rows inside our table so that everything becomes easy for us. So let's move ahead to insert rows in our table. So ask yourself, let's say if you are going to insert, how will you insert rows inside a table? How will you insert rows inside a table without my help? How will you insert rows inside a table without my help? Okay, so I know you get it right. So let's go ahead to insert rows inside our table and then continue. So now let's run the query again and then say we are going to insert rows inside our table. So to insert rows inside a table, you are using the keyword select. You're using the keyword insert to insert rows inside a table. You know, SQL, the language is more readable. Once you are writing, you are reading like it is readable. You can imagine the result before running the code. So that makes it much interesting in learning. Yes. So let's move ahead to see how we are going to insert rows inside our table. So let's say we want to insert. You say insert, and then we say into friends, because our table name is what? Friend. Okay, we made it friend because I'm just doing it with you. So I'm doing it with you, friend, into friend. So I said the table name is friend, and now what you're going to do is that we need to list the number of columns that we want it to, we want it to affect. We need to list all the number of columns we have. So now, and our ID, I said we made it to be auto increment. So there we don't have to bring ID again, because that one, once we've entered something, it is going to be numbered automatically, because that is our ID, and it is also the primary key that we can use in future when we want to join many tables together. So let's move ahead to see how we are going to do that. So let's say John, the first name, we need to bring first name. We will bring first name, then we bring comma. We bring last name, then we bring comma, and then the email, then there is that. So now we close this bracket and then move down, and then what we are going to do is that we will bring this in again, bracket open. When we open a bracket, that is where we now insert the values. So, and before we do that, what we do is that we just enter values. See that is why I said it is readable. So once it is readable, you are doing it, you are seeing what is going to happen. You can imagine before. So let's say our first name is going to be John. Our first name is going to be John, but remember to bring our first name is going to be John. So we bring comma, and in SQL, when you are writing, you have to make sure that when you are entering a string data type, you bring the quote. You bring the quote to identify that it is a string data type. Have you seen? So that is how you write it. And also we move ahead to last name. The last name, let's say it is Kwame. Last name, let's say it is Kwame. So Kwame. Last name is Kwame. So let's quote it and then bring comma. Then let's move ahead to insert the email. So let's say the email is Kwame, The email is Kwame. The email is Kwame at gmail.com. Kwame at email.com. At gmail.com. Kwame at gmail.com. Then we close the bracket, then we bring comma, then we go down. So here we don't bring values, it is not required again. You can bring value there again, but you don't write values again because we want to always minimize the time and then the space. So for that matter, just move ahead to enter the second name that we want to use. Let's say we want to use Amma. We want to use Amma. Then you remember to bring code this. Then we move ahead and say we want to also bring what the second name. What do we want to insert? Let's say we want to insert Baba. We want to insert Baba. So now, as we insert Baba, we can also bring what the email should be Baba at gmail.com. Then we close it. Then we close the bracket 2. Have a seen. So now we have created the table, and we are going to insert 2 rows into the table to see how it works. So let's move ahead. So now that we are done with the statement, remember to bring a semicolon to show that you have done with the table. So now the statement has been done and it is ready for execution. So let's run the query to see what happens. I hope there's no problem with this. So let's run it to see what happens. Go. Perfect. It has been executed. And then it says inserted to row ID 2. Inserted to row ID 2, and which means 1, 2. You see, the rows that has been inserted, that is what they are saying. Inserted 2 rows inside the table. So I want us to see what we've inserted. So in order for us to see them, we can run a query so that the system will fetch us the number of rows that is in the system. So let's do that quickly. So select. So let's first of all see the rows before. I want us to see the rows, the number of rows before we go to see the data in the rows. So select, and then I say count. Select count. So the system will count the number of rows we have and tell us before we go ahead to see what is there. Select rows, count, select, count. Then we bring the star because we want to count everything. Then we say from friends. From friends, then we bring a semicolon. And then we run the query. So when we run the query, we see what is in the table. So it says what? We have 2 rows. So the system says that we have 2 rows. So now that we know that we have 2 rows, we want to go ahead to see the number of rows that is in the table. The data that is in the table. So let's move ahead to see the data. So select this from friends. So now I just want us to run it and see the data. So now we bring star, and then we run this one to see the data that is in the table. Perfect. So you see the number of data that is in the table. Now we have ID to be 1, and that person is John, and the last name is Kwame, and the email is Kwame at gmail.com. The second one we know Amma, and then the last name Baba. So that is how it works. So what I want us to do is that we planned to also look at how to drop a row in the table. So let's say now that we have our rows working, how do we drop a row in the table? I will show you how to do that one too, and then with time, if there is time, I'll show you how to do other things too. But if there is no time to, what we do is that we can, I can, when I do another video, I'll make sure that I include the basic ones so that we get to understand them very well. You see, the way I takes my time to explain them is based on the kind of difficulties I faced when I was doing all these things. I realized the thing wasn't difficult, but the way sometimes they teach you also has an effect on your understanding. But when you take your time and explain it, and it is not about rushing, but it is about taking your time to explain the thing in detail, and everything is okay. Alright, so now what I want to do is that I want to show you how to then delete a row from the table. Now that we have created our table successfully, and the table name, we know the table name to be called friend and the database as laptop store, we will go ahead to know how we can delete a row from the table, because as a table, and then as you're going to be using it all the time, there is the need for updates, need for deleting, and the need for inserting. We have just inserted data, and how do we delete? And then I will show you how to delete that. After that, I'll show you how to drop the entire table. Then we dive into the next video and then see what happens. So let's move ahead to see. So with the deletion, we use the keyword delete. So let's say delete SQL delete from student, from friend, because our destination name is this. So from friend, and then we say delete from friend. So if you say delete from friend, it means you want to delete data from friend. But now you need to move ahead to say, what are you deleting? So you say delete from friend. Where? You see that where name or where this is this. You have to specify the what you want to delete. So I remember we have the first one to be John. When we were doing, we have the first name, one of them to be John, and we also have the first name of the other one to be Amma. So which of them do we want to delete? We will have to specify the row we want to delete. So let's say I want us to delete the second one, which is Amma, because that is what we can remember. And we can also remember their IDs, because the first one is 1, the second one is 2. So that one too is uniquely identifying. So let's go ahead to delete, and then we are good to go. Remember, the ID, I said it uniquely identifies. Here the names uniquely identifies here because the data here, they are not many. We have only 2. That is why we are able to use the names to delete specifically. But assuming if the names, a whole town that we've taken their data and we are going to update, or we are going to remove data from it. You see, we can't use the names. We can only use the IDs, because the ID that uniquely identifies them. We could have also go ahead to add their emails, or the email can also uniquely identify, because email are unique for them too. But the ID works perfectly. So let's go ahead. Let's use the name, because it also works here. So let's say delete from friend, where name, where first name is equal to, then we bring the first name. I said we want to use Amma. That is what I want us to delete, Amma. Then we execute. Now we are done with that. Then we execute. When we execute, we see the results. We see what MySQL will tell us. So let's press on the go key and then see what happens. The go key. You see, they give us a prompt, because this one, there is power, there is something that you can't do. So let's see what it tells us before I explain to you. It said, do you really want to execute delete from friend where first name equal to Amma? Are you sure you want to do that? If you say yes, remember, when prompts are like this, you need to take good care, because deleting it makes it difficult to be able to retrieve it. To retrieve this data, my brother, it is not easy. So for now, what I want us to do is that we say yes, because we are testing. We are not into real-time data where we have to take much caution. But when you're working with your own data that is essential, you need to make sure that you take things into consideration, because when you delete it, to retrieve it, it's not easy. So let's go ahead to see. Yes, it says what? One row deleted. So now let's go ahead to call the data, the table, to see what happens. So select from students, select from friend, then we execute to see what happens to our table. Now our table has now left with only one data, and that data is what? ID is 1, and the first name is John, the last name is Kwame. So that is that. So the deletion has successfully happened, and I want us to also try on how to delete the entire table from the system. So how to delete the entire table from the system. So let's move ahead to see MySQL. I press on MySQL and I say drop table friend. Perfect. Simple. When you write this and then you execute, you see all your table to be dropping. But I'm sure they will give us a prompt so that we will be sure of what we are doing. It says what? Do you really want to execute drop table friend? Do you really want to execute that? So imagine there is my local host, and the local host is telling me this. Imagine what, let's say, a World Wide Web will tell you. So it means that this is much interesting, and using the local host is just cool for learning. And I prescribe you using XAMPP to really test your hands on this. It gives you real-time data analysis skill. You see it for yourself. It's better than writing codes that you don't know what they are about. But when you're using this, it gives you much understanding, much deeper understanding. You understand the thing very well in real-time basis. Yes. So let me write this for us to see. It says what? Successful. SQL returned an empty result. Set 0 and all that. And give the time it has taken. And say drop table friend. That's the code we've run. So when you come back to laptop store, you will not see the friend there again because it has been removed from the system. You cannot even get it again. You can't even think of getting it again because we agreed with it that we want to drop it. And the system has left it long time ago. That is how it goes. So what I want to say is that thank you very much for watching my video today. Thank you very much for watching this video. I appreciate it, and I just want to say click the like button and then also share so that it will reach someone too that is in need of this content, and also encourage me to move ahead with my creation. God, I pray that you also grow. We are all growing, and we are ready for collaborations. Whatever kind of collaboration you want, either support or also you want to also learn what is happening, you can let us connect and also send this movement to the next level. What our ambition is about achieving, God should help us, and then with hard work, I'm sure we can able to get that. Just try to be showing up every day, because me, I don't believe in intelligence. I don't believe in anything. What I believe in is hard work. God first, hard work second, and you're good. You make your work ethics adequate, and then you work everywhere, very well, you don't have problem. Thank you very much for watching. See you.